a short poem about writing poetry, about the joys and the tribulations of it. And it's in the Shetland tongue. Some days words come. Some days words come as a pocky of spam. The filter's turned off. Nothing worth saying. Nae suller cord, nothing but a bag of brook, best bell to the four earths for what I can. Some days words come as birds, a commotion settling up in a skerry after the ocean's bath. They dicht their wings, blithe o heim territory, their flight a wind-born calligraphy. And now in Italian.
Certi giorni le parole arrivano. Certi giorni le parole arrivano come un pacco di spam che i filtri hanno fermato. Niente che valga la pena dire. Nessun cordone d'argento. Niente se non un sacchetto di ciarpami meglio gettati nelle 4 direzioni, da dove vengono. Certi giorni le parole arrivano come uccelli, un trambusto che si posa sugli scogli dopo la lotta con l'oceano. Si rassettano le ali contenti del territorio di casa. Il loro volo una calligrafia portata dal vento.
A little reference in the first stanza to Odysseus trying to get back from the Trojan Wars to Ithaca and being gifted a bag of winds from all the different quarters and tied up with a silver cord. But all I have is a pocky of spam, a package of spam when things are not going well when in the writing.
In italiano è molto bello, l'otre dei venti. La traduzione ufficiale è l'otre dei venti. And contained the 4 winds.
Yes.
It's opened. They were near Ithaca, and Ithaca is already far.
Right.
That's it.
Bellissima, very beautiful. Thank you, Christine, and thank you, Francesca Romana. And good evening to everybody. It's a real pleasure to see, to see people this evening when Christine De Luca is going to read in the presence also of our translator, Francesca Romana Paci. For people that don't know me, I'm Rossella Ricobono, and together with Laura Corraducci, who's also here present, you can see her.
Good evening.
We basically organize Il Pietrisco and have evenings of poetry. And so the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce the poet, Christina, I'm sorry, my Italian is coming in. So Christine De Luca writes in English and Shetland, which is Shetlandic, her mother tongue. She was appointed Edinburgh's Makar, or laureate poet, for the 2014 and 17 periods. She has 8 poetry collections published, several of which have won awards. She has also written 2 novels and several storybooks for children. She particularly enjoys collaborating with artists and musicians. Another Time, Another Place, which was Scottish Gallery in 2021, documented a collaboration with a much admired Scottish artist who is Victoria Crowe. She's also active in translation with 6 bilingual poetry collections published, as well as a few classic storybooks for children. And her Italian translation is Francesca Romana Paci, who I'm going to introduce right now. So welcome also to Francesca Romana Paci, who is Professor Emeritus of English Literature and Postcolonial Literatures at the Amedeo Avogadro University of Piemonte Orientale in northern Italy. She has written extensively on James Joyce, Sean O'Fallon, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Joseph O'Connor, Alistair MacLeod, the African Yvonne Vera and Zoe Wickham, and John Michael Coetzee, South African, and others. She particularly enjoys translating poetry. Among the poets she has translated, Christopher Smart, Coleridge, Byron, Thomas More, James Clarence Mangan, Frederick Louis MacNeice, David Gascoigne, Brendan Kennelly, Anne Michaels, Janice Kulik, Kiefer, and Seamus Heaney, and of course, Christine De Luca. So she published an annotated translation of James Joyce's Poems Peniac. And again, correct me, Francesca, if I'm...
Poems Peniac.
Perfect. I don't speak...
It's a very strange title. I think it means poems, one pain each.
One pain each, okay. Is that's Irish. That's obviously an Irish kind of name pun.
Not really. Not really. It's just a pun. It's a Joyce pun.
It's a Joyce. I'm sorry. It's the only book that he wrote in poetry, isn't it?
No, you mean Joyce? Joyce wrote 2 books of poems and pasquinades, but 2 books of poems. I dislike the first one. I like the second one.
Good. And then, of course, we all know him more as a novelist. So, but anyway, the spotlight back on Christine. So, Christine, is there anything that you would like to say to introduce? Because
well, I could say a little. Most of the poems will be in English, and they are really ekphrastic poems. They're poems about pieces of art. The first 3 are about Victoria Crow's artwork in Venice, and they're very different from her paintings that she's done in Scotland. She's much admired, prolific painter, huge canvases, landscapes, abstracts, portraiture, and really there's the first one I'm going to be doing, and you can sort of see that she's very textural. I don't have the vocabulary of an art critic, but the textures that she manages to create are often quite stunning. And you don't really sometimes know where you are. I mean, I think this is the feeling of being inside a church, perhaps, but there are these dark spaces that you might slip into, and these emblems like the Madonna and the lily, and perhaps that's a window, perhaps it's a painting there in the background, who knows. Often quite a lot of mystery in her paintings as well. So that's the first painting, if you can kind of keep that in your mind's eye. Within and without. Time is winding back, content to unmask history, its exquisite discolorations. The eye, pulled upward, rests on the oculus, planetary halo on a far wall, where frescoes peel to smudge of memory, touch of silk and gold. Time is standing still momentarily, the startling freshness of the flower, a glance of cypresses, brief beauty within and without, a place for minds to meander, a space for dreams. Time is relentless, willing us onward, against a patina marred with light. The sculpture, with downward glance, glows with peace. Yet we know she faces an unexpected tomorrow, that bold, so be it, of the lily. And before Francesca reads the translation, I will just, go back just to let you have another look at the face of the Madonna and the delicacy of the lily.
Shall I start?
Yes.
Dentro e fuori. Il tempo si riavvolge. Pago di smascherare la storia. e le sue squisite scolorazioni. L'occhio, sollevato in alto, posa sull'oculo, alone planetario nel muro lontano, dove affreschi stingono baffi di ricordo, tocco di seta e oro. Il tempo si ferma, momentaneamente, la freschezza sorprendente del fiore, cipressi solo intravvisti, bellezza breve dentro e fuori, un luogo di meandri per la mente, uno spazio per i sogni. Il tempo implacabile ci spinge avanti, contro una patina concimata di luce, la scultura. Sguardo verso il basso fulge di pace, ma noi sappiamo che fronteggia un imprevisto domani. Quello spavaldo, così sia, del Giglio.
Victoria has a studio in Venice and has spent quite a lot of time there. And as I said, there's a huge contrast between the paintings she does there and the paintings she does in Scotland. I love this one. Again, you've got this very, very textured lagoon, and yet you've got this very architectural relief of the roofscape of Venice there. And the light, the quality of the light. And then this boat, what is going on with this boat? It sort of pulls your eye and you sort of wonder. So this is my take on Zatari looking into evening sun. The sun is dipping over Venice, but not without the sky throwing down its glowing gauntlet to the water. Match that if you dare. Light up the old facades sinking into shadow. Make them opulent enough to rival the palazzi of the Grand Canal. And catch that boatman as he steals across a burnished channel, his wake about to tilt light, spill secret gold as he pursues his evening errand.
Ce l'hai? Zattere, guardando nel sole della sera. Il sole si abbassa sopra Venezia, ma non senza che il cielo scagli il suo lucente guanto di sfida all'acqua. Emola questo se osi. Accendi le vecchie facciate, scese nell'ombra, falle opulente, tanto da farle rivali dei palazzi sul Canal Grande. Cattura il barcaiolo, che passa furtivo un canale brunito, la scia che quasi piega la luce, versa oro segreto, mentre lui adempie al compito serale.
And one last look at the lovely painting. And the last one of Victoria Crow's that I'm going to read is this one, Reflected Drama San Giorgio. And she often uses reflections from windows or mirrors or whatever. And in this case, you've got this lovely old mirror, and the walls are reflected in it, and also across the lagoon, right to the far shore. So you're looking through a mirror backwards, so to speak. And I love the painting of the water, the light on the water there, and the contrast with the complexity of the decoration of the mirror's border. It's to me, there's something similar to the paintings by Turner. Turner famously painted Venice, and even his Fighting Temeraire, nothing to do with Venice, but the battle scene. There's something about the sky and the colors and the power of the image which remind me of Turner. And of course, then there's the Magdalene there. What's she doing there? Where is she? And why is she there? So again, this is my take on that. I've called it Storm Approaching. Gondolas are tied up close to mooring poles. Dallying tourists retreat as a swift breeze stirs. Someone in San Marco pulls a window closed, glances at reflections across the water. It seems the heat of day has kicked up a storm, the kind of sudden turbulence that set Turner spinning. The Salute is lit like the Temeraire, the lagoon drowning its palette of mirrored sky, yielding to the wind's whip. Inside the room is stillness. Flowers frame the towering clouds, and Mary Magdalene, her lit face turned away, lingers on the shadowy retina of memory.
Burrasca in arrivo. Gondole ormeggiate strette alle paline ritardano i turisti. Soffia una brezza veloce. Qualcuno a San Marco chiude una finestra, posa lo sguardo sui riflessi nell'acqua. Il calore del giorno ha innescato una burrasca. Il genere di turbolenza improvvisa che accendeva Turner. La Salute illuminata come la Temeraria. La laguna affonda la sua palette di cielo specchiato e cede alla frusta del vento. Dentro la stanza la quiete. Fiori a cornice delle nubi torreggianti e Maria Maddalena, il viso illuminato volto altrove, indugia sulla retina ombrosa della memoria.
So that's just a little bit of Victoria Crow's work from Venice. She has many, many paintings set in Venice, all beautiful, but those are three of my favorites. Going on now to one poem, Giotto, in the Scrivegni Chapel, the frescoes there in Padua. And I was very fortunate that Francesca and I spent a day in Padua, and we went there. And she also took me to the Caffè Pedrocchi, which is a very stylish place, eatery. But I was more taken up with the maps on the wall than, to be honest, with the fashionable people or the beautiful food, because they were very old maps of navigators, I think. They were oceans, and you don't usually see oceans as the center of a map. But this is just one little image from the huge number of images in the chapel. This is Judas' kiss, the betrayal of Christ. And of course, the ceiling is all that beautiful, beautiful blue, that deep, deep blue, which doesn't really show up on this. So it starts with an epigraph from Thomas Mann. Myth is the way things never were, but always are, which I think is very interesting and quite profound. Storytelling in Padua. In Caffè Pedrocchi, it's not the elegance or the food that fascinates, but old maps hung on old walls, oceans the focus, cardinal points the wrong way round, a reminder that there's no right way up, that it's all about perception. Nearby in the Scrivegni Chapel, under Giotto's stars, we confront the far-flung edges of all we cannot know, that mysterious deep downness, that improbable blue. Fabled figures draw compassion from shade and light, from gesture, hue. Stylized eyes soften with love or loyalty, harden with betrayal, sharpen with terror. It's all there, all rendered. In the topography of silence, we transcend our flat earth, our upside-down world, our own stories, dead ends, myths of our own making.
Padova. Narrazione. Al Caffè Pedrocchi non è il cibo, o l'eleganza, il fascino, ma vecchie mappe appese a vecchi muri, focus, sugli oceani, e punti cardinali collocati a rovescio. Moniti che non esiste un verso giusto, che tutto è percezione. Vicino agli scrovegni, sotto le stelle di Giotto, siamo di fronte agli orli espansi del nostro ignoto, il misterioso discendere, l'improbabile azzurro. Figure fiabesche traggono compassione da ombre e luce, dal gesto, dalla tinta, occhi stilizzati, dolci d'amore o di lealtà, duri di tradimento, affilati di terrore. È tutto lì, tutto rappresentato. Nella topografia del silenzio trascendiamo la nostra terra piatta, il mondo capovolto, le nostre storie, i vicoli ciechi, miti di fattura nostra.
And
Before going on, I would like to point out how good Christina is in making the glances, the eyes, one glance different from the other. She, of course, says it's better. Dolci d'amore o di lealtà, duri di tradimento, affilati di terrore. I think she was really very good.
Oh, you're kind. But I totally mispronounced Pedrocchi?
Pedrocchi.
Pedrocchi.
Good,
Yeah.
good.
Okay, yeah. Okay, sorry
Pedrocchi.
about that. Yeah, okay.
It was not so good after
I was
all.
going to say,
But the natural
Christina,
ones,
Christine, I come from Padova.
Oh, lovely. Yeah,
I
well,
was born in Padua.
Il Pedrocchi is where we have all our parties after degrees, you know, when we get our degrees from the university there. We'll go to Pedrocchi Cafe for party. And
it's very stylish. It's very lovely.
Beautiful.
Rossella, I was born in Padua.
I'm
I
sorry.
was born in Padua.
You were
There
born
you
in Padova?
Piazza Castello numero 3.
Oh, okay.
There you
I
go.
wasn't born in Padova, but I
Well, you know Piazza Castello, the triangular one.
And Pedrocchi it has an extra it's not just the elegance. I think what really captures me here, apart from the chapel of the Scrovegni, which is a unique piece, a kind of jewel in Italy, I would say. Italy is full of art, but the Scrovegni chapel is particularly beautiful because of the Giotto frescoes throughout the chapel. But you know, the Caffè Pedrocchi also has a very historical importance in the time, at the time of the making of the nation, you know, in the 19th century. And so I think it fits as a place as well.
Oh, that's good.
for the extra, you know, for the extra depth that the cafe has.
Okay. Well,
very beautiful poems about Veneto, Venice. And
Pedrocchi is a monument, but the way Christine described eyes and glances is another kind of monument.
Enough. Yes. We're going to go on to
Well
Eduardo.
enough.
Now we move to
I
Scotland.
only translate what I like. You know that I have not a very good attitude to it. Either I like a poem or I refuse.
Well, there's 3 poems now about Eduardo Paolozzi, some Edinburgh sculptures. I don't know how many of you know about Eduardo Paolozzi, but he died in 2005, very much a 20th century artist of world renown, really. He was a Scottish-Italian family. I think probably his grandparents would have come to Edinburgh from province Frosinone, same province as my husband's people came from, and probably like them, they walked to Scotland, but I'm not sure in his case if that is the case, but they were economic migrants coming from poverty and settling in the city, and all of them really set up little businesses, ice cream shops, confectioner shops, eventually fish and chip shops, and prospered. And their great dream for their family was to get on, and that meant leaving school, coming into the shop, working hard, marrying a good Italian girl, hopefully with a father who has a business, and building up businesses and really being successful. And Eduardo just did not fit that mold in any way. He was very bright, unusual. His interests were eclectic. He was very interested in pop art, kind of visionary, and his work stretches from monumental sculptures to lots of printmaking. He worked in glass, stained glass, ceramics, collage, mosaic, all sorts of media. He was never done, and he loved rubbish. He would be in every skip looking to see what he could find, and in every toy shop seeing what he could find, and his mind was just always on the go. So here's Vulcan, and Vulcan is a massive 7+ meter welded steel structure in the modern gallery of art in Edinburgh. And you can see from the size of the door there just how big Vulcan is. They had to take him in parts and weld them together in situ, but I'm rather fond of Vulcan. So there's two slides to this one. Meeting Vulcan. You are daunting, Vulcan, towering above me. Art shows magnificence well within your grasp, as with your gammy leg and platform heels, you stride the shining hall, hammer in hand. We could do with you in goal for Scotland. 4 6-footers barely have your reach, your mettle. You are top drawer, son of Juno and Jupiter, the royalty of gods. But in her regal eyes, you didn't make the bonny baby grade. There's something vulnerable still lurking that brings out the mother in me. I want to shine your steel, make you gleam and sparkle. You could be the patron saint of blacksmiths, as you are first to find the skills and secrets of the craft. Or perhaps for single mothers in praise of Thetis, who rescued you from your abandonment and brought you up, never noticed you were ugly or deformed. Or maybe you should be the patron saint of all those judged too flawed, of those whose inner strength and spirit is what truly counts. Stride on, half man and half machine, under those majestic heavens. The more I look at you, the more I see a beauty in your fabled strength.
Before reading the Italian version, I would say that without a human figure next to him, we probably, who is looking now at the image, does not realize how huge it is. Christine took a photograph of me next to the statue, and I barely reached the shoes. barely, because I'm very small. But really to enter that hall and look at Vulcan, well, it's to fall in love with Vulcan.
There you go.
It's incredibly huge and splendid, full of light. I read now. Incontro con Vulcano. Tu incuti soggezione, Vulcano, torreggiante su di me. L'arte mostra bene la magnificenza in tuo possesso, mentre con la gamba zoppa e le zeppe ai talloni incedi nella sala splendente con il martello in mano. Ci andresti bene a marcare in meta per la Scozia? 4 rugbisti di 6 piedi non hanno la tua presa, il tuo metallo. Tu eri nato in alto, figlio di Giove e Giunone, la famiglia reale degli dei, ma ai loro occhi regali non raggiungevi il grado di bel bambino. C'è qualcosa di vulnerabile in te, ancora nascosto, che tira fuori la madre in me. Mi viene voglia di lustrare il tuo acciaio, farti brillare e fare scintille. Tu potresti essere il santo patrono dei fabbri, perché sei stato il primo a scoprire i trucchi e segreti del mestiere. O forse patrono delle madri sole, in onore di Teti, che ti ha messo in salvo dall'abbandono e ti ha fatto diventare grande, e non ha mai notato se eri brutto o deforme. O forse dovresti essere il santo patrono di tutti coloro giudicati troppo imperfetti, coloro di cui forza interiore e spirito sono quello che davvero conta. Incedi sempre, per metà uomo e metà macchina, sotto queste maestose volte. Più indugio a guardarti e più vedo una bellezza nella tua favolosa forza.
Thank you.
There is one thing I would like to point out in the translation, the use of imperfecti. Etymologically, it means not perfect, from imperficio, non finiti, non completamente giunti a una fattura totale. So it's etymologically in its place, imperfetti.
Good. There's another one by Paolozzi, and again, it's monumental. You'll see in this case by the size of the car down here. And this is the Wealth of Nations, and it's placed in the Gyle Business Park on the outskirts of Edinburgh, a very strange place for it. It was commissioned by the Royal Bank of Scotland at a time when I think for public art, they probably got some tax allowance for it. And Wealth of Nations, the title, comes from the book by the famous political economist Adam Smith. I think he was probably about the father of political economy in the days of the Enlightenment in Scotland. And he had a real ethical strain through his economics, a moral order that he was talking about. And I think there's a little bit of irony in the fact that this bank, which eventually collapsed and brought down almost the whole British state, the Royal Bank of Scotland, there's some irony in having this sitting outside one of their major offices in Edinburgh. I think there are many ways of looking at this particular piece. What I've done is only one possible interpretation, but I see such a distinction between the head and the reverse of the piece there, and the feet and hands, which are so very, very human. And the reverse, I tend to think of the nodding donkeys, the oil wells in America, that just clank up and down all the time, lifting the oil, and there's nobody on site. But that's just one interpretation. But the feet are what really fascinate me. And this Einstein quotation, knowledge is wonderful, but imagination is even better. And to have that, you know, for a bank commission is almost one in the eye. I think there's something quite ironic about the whole thing. So here's some of its parts. And I think we maybe have a slightly different version. I think there's a version control problem here with the Italian, but Francesca will read the correct version.
Yes, I will.
Some of its parts. It is monumental, more than the sum of its parts. A man, head and hands, pulling on the levers of some great endeavor. He embodies concentration, Lying prone, he mines rock, not ledgers, rejects the spoil, implies that the wealth of nations accumulates from adding value to the earth's material gifts through his skill, toil, knowledge, creativity, technology. From the other side, his head transforms into a piston pump, symbol of easy wealth, of emptied workplaces checked from a comfortable distance, of capital as king. Yet the man persists. He is beyond mere utility. In this hard-edged world, his feet are sensuous, soft and stoical. They seem to be going in the other direction. Perhaps in his imagination, the man is walking back to another dispensation. Perhaps he is dreaming of home, of family, of days without 0 hours contracts, of life beyond relentless cranks and counterweights, the repetitive turn, beyond digits and ciphers.
Somma delle sue parti. È monumentale, più della somma delle sue parti. Un uomo, la testa e le mani, che manovra le leve di qualche grande impresa. Incarna la concentrazione. In posizione prona estrae roccia, non libri mastri. Scarta le scorie. Implica che la ricchezza delle nazioni si accumula aggiungendo valore ai doni materiali della terra per mezzo di perizia, fatica, conoscenza, creatività, tecnologia. Nella parte retrostante la testa si trasforma in una pompa pistone, simbolo della ricchezza facile, di luoghi di lavoro vuoti, controllati a una comoda distanza, del capitale come sovrano. Tuttavia, l'uomo persiste, va oltre la pura utilità. In questo mondo di spigoli duri, i suoi piedi sono sensuali, teneri e stoici. Sembra che stiano andando nell'altra direzione. Forse, nella sua immaginazione, l'uomo sta camminando all'indietro verso un'altra mansione. Forse sta sognando della sua casa, della sua famiglia, dei giorni senza contratti a 0 ore, di una vita oltre gli ingranaggi implacabili e i contrappesi, i turni ripetitivi, oltre i numeri e le cifre.
Always sounds better in Italian, I think.
Well, I think it sounds better in English, actually. Oh, why not in Shetlandic? You never tried that.
No, no. This one is the last one in of Eduardo Paolozzi's. It's Parthenope and Egeria, and it's a pair of statues, and they were commissioned by the University of Edinburgh, the School of Biological Sciences. And they have this wonderful quotation from Albert Einstein. I think for students, it's very special. Never regard study as a duty, but as an enviable opportunity to learn to know the liberating influence of beauty in the realm of the spirit for your own personal joy and to the profit of the community to which your later work belongs. I think, you know, for people really deep into their scientific research, that's something to think about, the liberating influence of beauty in the realm of the spirit and what you can bring to everybody else as well as enjoy yourself. Now, here they are a strange pair. They may not be in exactly that position at the moment. They have moved them once or twice when they've been renovating. But Parthenope is on the left there, she's the tall one. And Egeria is the one standing on her head. And they are associated with Rome and Naples, so I think his Italian background sort of comes out there. They're also the names of two asteroids, or two small planets near Mars. And he had been working on a piece about jugglers. So I think that sort of seems to kind of almost come in, this sense of balance. And you can see items like this ball here and here. That appears in quite a few of his pieces of work. And it's often to do with genetics, the genes. And here you've got some measuring devices. And Egeria has got this wheel in between her feet here, but it's just strange, strange, and the whole thing, these where levers, sometimes it's a lever and sometimes it's an arm. Anyway, that's Parthenope and Egeria. Strange to think that inside we all look like these two, links of sausages, globular torsos, corporeal to the core. And strange that every brain cell remembers to renew itself over and over, yet unique consciousness endures. And puzzling to realize we turn the world upside down, invert images, all that involuntary optics, busy physics. Thank God for science, for the likes of Newton and all he discovered. Think vision, gravity, laws of motion, think orbital mechanics. We are what we are, biological entities, biochemical processes, fragments on the move, welded together through the power of elusive thought, intangible imagination. Egeria views the world from a different angle. She appears to be doing a headstand. Those feet tramped to Palestine on pilgrimage. See how beautiful they are, their gospel of peace, and how strong they are, able to wind up the heavens, spin the planets. Parthenope has mislaid her wings and arms, but her thighs are armoured like a wicket-keeper. With her hard head she measures truth. Yet she is not without mirth. Any minute she might kick that ball, her namesake asteroid, into the yet to be discovered unknown.
Parthenope e Egeria. Strano pensare che dentro tutti siamo fatti come queste due ninfe, file di salsicce, torsi globulari, corporei fino al cuore. È strano che ogni cellula del cervello ricordi di rinnovare ripetutamente se stessa, ma resti la coscienza dell'unicità. Sconcertante rendersi conto che capovolgiamo il mondo, rovesciamo le immagini, tutta ottica involontaria, fisica attiva. Si è ringraziato Dio per la scienza, qualcuno come Newton e tutto quello che ha scoperto. Pensate, visione, gravità, leggi del moto. Pensate, la meccanica celeste. Noi siamo quello che siamo. Noi siamo entità biologiche, processi biochimici, frammenti in movimento, saldati insieme per effetto del potere di pensiero illusivo, di intangibile immaginazione. Egeria vede il mondo da un'angolatura diversa. Sì, sembra che stia facendo un esercizio a testa in giù. Quei piedi sono andati in pellegrinaggio in Palestina. Guardate come sono belli. Il loro Evangelo di pace. E come sono forti, capaci di provocare la rivoluzione della volta celeste, la rotazione dei pianeti. Partenope ha retratto le sue ali e le braccia, ma ha le cosce armate come quelle di un giocatore di cricket. Con la sua testa massiccia misura la verità. Eppure non è priva di divertimento. Da un momento all'altro può dare un calcio alla palla, l'asteroide con il suo nome, e spedirlo nell'ancora da scoprire ignoto.
Thank you, Francesca. Rosella, that I think you wanted to keep the final poem for later, is that right? Did you want to?
I think it would be good to close with a poem, and especially because you're going back to Shetlandic. So we started with Shetlandic and we finished with your home tongue, you know, your mother tongue, which is. But anyway, thank you very much. I mean, I'm very absolutely fascinated by your poetry and the connection with the art and the art that you choose, actually, not just because I'm biased and it's because of Venice or Padova, but especially I love those that are connected to the sculpture.
Sorry, can I just interrupt for 1 minute? Do you want me to stop screen sharing?
Yeah, okay. Let's do that. Let's stop the screen sharing so we can be in the gallery and we can only open the conversation to, or you know, the evening to questions by the public. I don't know if anybody wants to start a question. I've got a question already, but you know, I'm happy to ask it second or third. I have a question for Christina, and I have a question for Francesca Romana as well. But if anybody else has a question before me, you go. Yes, Diana, do you want to unmute?
Yes, there we are. It's not really a question, but I hope Christine will forgive me to say that lovely it is to hear her. It's an even greater pleasure to hear Francesca in Italian, which we so rarely do here. So it was delightful to hear your translations, Francesca, and it's a lovely combination, the poetry and the paintings. Thank you both very much.
Thank you, thank you. Diana and Hamish have published some of my work, which is very nice. and actually the final poem will be one that they did publish.
Okay, that's good. It's good to have you know, a few viewpoints as well. So if there's anything that you want to add as well as the publishers, it would be great to hear. But is there any other question before I fire mine? I've got a question for Christine. Okay, I'll break the ice.
Simple.
I absolutely love the detail and the love and the care, which is motherly, towards those sculptures that you've used to write poetry. You know, Vulcan, you know, there is an eye on the care and the gaze on Vulcan, which to me is so tender. And Vulcan is no longer a giant. Vulcan becomes a child. From my viewpoint, to talk about him as being, you know, the son of gods, you know, top, you know, the top, you know, Zeus and Juno. But there is that kind of that care for the detail that really melts the metal for me and goes into, you know, he nearly becomes flesh, you know, for me. There's a heart, you can see his heart, you can see his soul. And the same happens with the two muses, you know, the two nymphs.
Penelope and Egeria.
And especially that attention to the feet that you also talk about in the Paolozzi sculpture. There is those feet that have been to Palestine, to the Holy Land, you say at one point. And
I mean, Paolozzi has a lot of feet. He does in his work feature quite a lot, actually, and I think sometimes he does them quite beautifully. Yeah,
I mean,
the famous one is the one outside the Catholic Cathedral, the manuscript of Monte Cassino, it's called. And it's really a reflection on the awful time that they had in the war, the Second World War. The Italian community found that a very difficult time. because Italy, of course, came in on the other side, and Monte Cassino, the monastery, was destroyed, really, and he has this huge foot with like the foot of Constantine and the sandal, and round it the little fragments of the manuscript are printed round it. I mean, it's massive. Children can climb up on it. And to me, it just looks like the kind of hilltop villages of Vitacusu and places like that, you know. But there are also fragments. There's an ankle bone and there's a hand, and they're all dismembered. Like in wartime. It's very powerful, but he does go in for feet, yes, in a big way.
So there's
Hands as well.
Hands as well.
Hands as well. But you know, there is that care, for example, when you say we all look like those two men, you know, the plaza sausages, etc. You know, you look beyond. My question was, how do you choose your art? How do you choose your sculptures, for example? You know, is it obviously, you know, you're in Edinburgh, and so Paolozzi had sculpture in Edinburgh, and so it's maybe, but there seems to be something in common which makes you look beyond, that makes you look within the work.
Yeah, there it is. I suppose I choose things that I like, that I find interesting. And yeah, I suppose there's no rhyme or reason, really. Yeah.
Because also the Paolozzi sculpture, there's something which is quite futurista, not futuristic about his style. And I mean, if we look at the sculpture of early 20th century, and if we look at Paolozzi, there isn't much difference. And of course, you're talking about, you know, the Bank of Scotland, you're talking about the more than, you know, the whole more than the sum of its parts. So there is this kind of, but you know, and also the pistons and you know, this kind of attention to the nearly mechanics of it, also Vulcan, you know, being such a dynamic, moving giant, really, but with the heart of a child, you know. Is there anything that attracts you to that art which somehow looks at the future, somehow is giving us a nostalgic looking backwards, but also an eye to the future, to what's going to happen to us, you know, to the human race, for example? There is some sign of that to me, you know, in
his work. Yeah, it's quite futuristic in many ways, and he was very interested in science fiction.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think many of the decisions I make as to what I choose to write about and actually how I write is often quite intuitive. I don't really cogitate a lot about it.
Yeah. But there is, but you do point out this,
Hands up here.
But you do point out with your words to
can go on and on and on, I think.
I don't know.
Anyway, I think we should, do you have a question for Francesca? And then I'll do one poem and we'll not keep people too late, I think.
I got a question as well, when I can.
Hello, Laura. Hello.
Okay. All right. First, Rosella, do you want to ask your question?
Well, my question was about, you know, about translation. So do you want, I don't know if you have a question for Christine.
Yes, for Christine.
Voice as well, you know, it's not just me.
Yeah. I got two questions. One personal is, it's my first time I listened to your poetry. So is your first time that you connect words and visual art together in your poems, or maybe is something that you get used to in your poetry career? And what is poetry for you? I mean, with your literary work, where are you going to?
Am I going to? Nowhere,
yeah,
nowhere, absolutely nowhere. I have done over the years quite a lot, I suppose, on art. I'm very fond of art. I'm pretty ignorant about it, but I respond to it. I find it
It's just things you like. I mean, you like this painting and you want,
yes,
just
I
want
do.
to write a poem about. It's not.
Yeah, but very often it started off because someone said to me, would you do something? You know, I mean, the Victoria Crow stuff started like that. I was asked by the City Art Centre to write some poems. And the Paolozzi thing, I was asked by a fellow called Carlo Paolozzi to write something. So, I mean, but then once I start, I can really get quite warmed up to the whole thing, you know.
But not the message is behind these poems that you want to give to people who read your poems, or to leave.
No, I think I do feel it's greater than the sum of the parts, and I do think that the poetry can help people look at the art more carefully, and the art can help people look at the poem more carefully. And I hope that between the two, they get more than they would if they were just looking at one or other. I mean, that's maybe a bit arrogant, but I do think poetry can stop people for a moment, just to look a little bit more in depth.
All right. Just
but I'm not going anywhere in poetry. I'm just plodding on.
You're not plodding on. You were poet laureate, you know. I mean, that's not plodding on. That's doing very well.
That's no great shakes now.
But I was thinking about a message you want to give with your poetry, or what point in your life, I mean, literary life, do you feel if you look behind, and where are you now? I mean, when you start writing poems, I suppose you were younger than you are now. So sometimes is a thing I'm asking myself. I wonder myself, when I started writing poems, I got my ideas about poetry, about life. Things have changed. My poetry has changed as well. So that was the reason of the question. Where are you going to? Where am I
going to?
Yeah.
Nowhere fast. I just enjoy doing it. It's fun.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I totally agree with you that poetry gives us that moment of stillness to look deeper. That's why, you know, I know the Vulcan because I know the modern art of gallery and I've seen it many times. But now when I go back, I will look at it more because your poem made me look inside, you know, this nearly humanity inside the sculpture. So thank you very much for that. I totally agree with the correspondences that you find and that help each other, you know, between the my other question for you, but then
no, you move on
was you know, I hear from your present, you know, from introducing you that you also work with from music. And I wanted to ask you if maybe you had a poem that you wanted to share with us, that maybe later, I don't know, if maybe after my question or maybe after the end of the questions, before you conclude.
No, I prepared another one. I would have to go and dig out something, and some of it is quite daft, you know, to do with jazz and things like that. So no, it wouldn't.
Jazz? Oh, love it.
Yeah, it wouldn't fit. No.
Okay.
Did you have a question for Francesca?
Right. So my question for Francesca is, you know, especially for the art and the English, you know, it's easier. Maybe, I know you're a scholar of English and a translator of poems for a long time, but you also translate from Shetlandic. How does it feel translating from Shetlandic into Italian? What are the sound correspondences that you found, or completely different? Any comment?
No, not difficult. It's a curious story. It's an old story. When I was very, very young, I was a student. I landed purely by chance in Shetland, and I stayed there for some time, and the sound of the language entered in a way or another. But then Christine was with me all the time because we met in Edinburgh and we started talking, and actually we never stopped talking. and so she helped me. But both the sound of Shetlandic, that I consider a language, not a dialect, by the way, and the rhythm of Shetlandic, that doesn't sound difficult to me. I don't know why. Probably because of Christine. Besides, after Mary, Christine, they never told our public of Mary, our audience of Mary. Mary is a novel. You know about Mary? Christine's novels?
Oh, Mary John's daughter.
Partly written in Shetlandic. After reading that, I'm far more proficient, Christine. So much of it is in. Shall I take it? Shall we?
Well, I think people need to get away quite soon. That's my feeling. I don't think we should divert into novels, to be honest.
Mary.
Just a quick one, Mary. Poor old Mary.
Mary.
Yeah, we're
Mary.
curious. We want to know.
That's very nice. Yeah.
A good part of it is in Shetlandic.
It's it is the
So if
dialogue.
you want to follow the story, you have to learn more Shetlandic. Anyway, no, probably because of Christine, but because I love the sounds of Shetlandic. I don't know, but
Good. Well, I'm going to read you a little bit in it now. Okay.
yes, please do.
Yes.
But may I ask you to? Oh well.
Yeah.
Before that,
Uh-huh.
I wanted to give a sort of an answer to the young lady who writes poetry in Pesaro, and is the poem you wrote, Inizierò con l'orizzonte. I'll start with the horizon draw.
Oh, that one, yes.
That one.
Yeah, that's
You
that's
know
a
it,
lands. Sorry?
I can read it in Italian, but I dare
I
not.
think we want to, I don't know, but I just sense that we've already gone over our time, and I think that we don't want to divert into.
It's a beautiful poem, all right. Anyway, I'll tell you, the lady in Pesaro, Christine paints a painting saying, would I paint this vision, this image, this landscape? I would do that, that, and that. And she states color, palette, forms. So she paints a painting that she is not painting.
Yeah, that's right.
She's describing word by word. So she has a flair for that. She has a passion for painting by words and creating her own palette, using all the words she can think of.
Okay, right. Well, this is a final poem, and it's from That Trickster's Son, which appears as a little book in Italian, Questo Sole Forfante, which Francesca very kindly translated. And there's one of the area where this is set, and it's a poem of ambivalence and having to leave Shetland again and going back to the city. And I'd found this huge heart stone, perfectly shaped heart, and I wanted to take it with me, but of course I was going on a little plane and couldn't. So I propped it up in the cliff and hoped it might be there when I came back. Oops, wrong one, sorry. There's a picture, not of the actual stone, but one very similar. So it's called discontinuity, which is a geological term, which, you know, when you have rocks of different ages and types close together, and in Shetland, you get a lot of places where you can see that, geological discontinuity. So there's this kind of ambivalence in the poem. The little bird that's mentioned is the ringed plover, and we call it the sandy loo. Discontinuity. I could blame the wide sea is smooth the stains, the silk touch, the wailing, laving, and will the heart be there when I come back? Or I could blame the sandy loo. He was clear, quoth white again, this why no, nae looking o'er your shudder, tide this no wet. See the wide, the swill of joy is drained. Dance the day. The morn you slip into eternity. Or I could blame the hush that fills you till you're like to burst with all the words that could be said, but you had back. That's what happens when you step in time, but sense a fault line vimmering through you, this side or that. On the sea can greet and sing at the same time, shade and light, cobalt, ultramarine, and dan de linnebrat, a ties, a frush, a white.
L'italiano non è così bello e con suoni. It's not so beautiful. In Italian, it's not so beautiful. The sounds, in a way, you know, we have a polysyllabic language. And Shetlandic is monosyllabics mostly. Not completely, but mostly. So in Italian doesn't sound
It sounds beautiful. You go
as
for it.
well as I would like. But anyway. Potrei dare la colpa a come il mare ha levigato i sassi, la seta al tatto, lo scegliere, il lasciare. E sarà ancora qui questo cuore quando ritornerò. O potrei dare la colpa al sen di lui. Era chiaro per lui per quale via andare. Questa via ora, senza guardarti dietro le spalle. La marea non aspetta. Vedi come scorre via il flusso della gioia. Danza questo oggi. Domani dormirai dentro l'eternità. O potrei dare la colpa allo sciabordio che ti colma finché puoi facilmente esplodere in tutte le parole che potevano essere dette, ma tu hai trattenuto. È quello che accade quando sai tenere il tempo, ma senti che un limite di colpa ti vibra dentro. Questa o quella sponda. Solo il mare sa piangere e cantare nello stesso tempo. Ombra e luce, cobalto, ultramarino e poi la risacca, una lusinga, un gorgoglio di bianco.